now that the bigger kids are back in school, we're going to start seeing some preschool stuff. So I have a sleep mat to do, and the customer wants the name to go under this strap. So I went ahead and measured the distance and go ahead and divide it by 2. And that's how I got my center. And I decided to go with the pattern because the flowers are facing, this would be the bottom of the flower and this is the top of the flower. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the monogram go in that direction because that makes the most sense. That's not normally where we monogram these. Normally we monogram these right here, but this particular customer wants something different. So I'm just going to go ahead and open it up. I'm going to use my mighty hoop. That's going to work perfect for this. And when you pin something or you mark it some kind of way, that way you never lose sight of what's the top and what's the bottom. So I'm going to lay it here and make sure that the blanket is out of the way because there's a blanket attached. I'm going to use tearaway, 1 piece of tearaway, because it's already pretty stable and it doesn't need a whole lot of backing. And I'm just going to slip I'm using my 7 1/4. You want to always put the rough side up and you always want to put the tab up. So I'm going to slip this underneath the backing like that. And I think I'm going to go ahead and hoop it upside down because I wouldn't want to shove all of that into the machine. Over here, I wouldn't have to push as much through the back of the machine. So trying to line it up here. Make sure that my lines of the mat are straight and I can find my center up there. And that was pretty easy. So I have it hooped like this. And then we're just going to slip it onto the machine. So you're going to have to push this back underneath the carriage. So make sure that it's not going to obstruct the carriage. Anything back there, you want everything to still be able to move. You don't want to have a blanket, pushed back in there and then things can't move. So, all right. So now I just have to flip my design upside down, trace it out, and we're good to go. It's finished. It was 7,000 stitches and it will cost $17. So looks great. The machine can handle thick stuff like this with no problem. 7 1/4 hoop. That's the hoop that I'm going to use. You want to display your hoop on the screen in Design Shop. You just click here. You can right click and change it to whatever hoop you're using and say okay. So I have my 7 1/4 on the screen because that's what I'm going to use. I click on A. I click on the screen. I type in the name ELLISON. Enter. Now the customer wants a font called Surf, so I'm going to click here. I start typing in Surf and the font comes up right there. Now I'm going to make this a little bit bigger because it needs to be big to get good coverage on a sleep mat. I'm also going to add some pull percentage because what I'm sewing on is very, very thick. And if I sew this, even though this looks thick, when you put it on something like a sleeping bag or a sleep mat, it's going to sink into it. So I'm going to bump this up to say 130-ish. And you can see that what happens is when things start to get too thick, part of your font will turn into a fill stitch and then the rest of it will be satin. Well, I don't really care for that. So what I can do is I can come here and I can go to top stitching and it says use a fill for a stitch line greater than 80 points or 0 disables it. So I'm going to disable it for now because I'm okay with going that thick on this particular item. Now I also don't like this little cap on the end. That happened when I added the pull percentage. So I'm going to go back to 100. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here to the pull offset and I'm going to change it to, let's just say a 5. And I'll say enter. Okay, so now I have the thickness that I want without that crazy looking little cap. I don't love the way this E is touching the L, but unfortunately it doesn't look right if I slide it away. So I'm just going to leave it there. And as it turns out, when it did finish sewing, because things sew out thinner than how you see them on the screen, this did not even touch when I finished it. So I'm going to center that. And then I'm also going to make sure that I have enough stitches underneath because this is a very thick item. And so I need to make sure that I have good stitches underneath to cover the sleep mat. So right here on underlay, I'm going to use a fill 2 times because this is probably 2 inches thick, this sleep mat. And so I think I can make it just a little bit bigger and center it, and I'm good to go. And that's how I did a sleep mat.